Kudo here. It's a liaja, I don't know Kudo. Here Kudo. So there's on the Hain Z, Kudo. I see by here Kudo. I don't know Kudo. Ocean Hije, they have this thing Kudo. Herman Daniels Jr. A. Kiji. I don't know, and gay, yeah. But Annie. I don't kill it. Sheen A. That's a Shanda. I don't know. Who hit Lenny. Na kaid neda A. That's a shame. I don't know. Hashkats the way that's a nalaho. O tai ken hitini do leti benibiye. I don't know panash nishige ya. Natas on or jeto. Shat ho api ken. Idiota Jeda has a say dollars. I don't know what this morning. I apologize for coming in late. Nagait Atlanta Illinois, so Aje. Nagait Navajo Hopi Lanka Michelle to Aje Latni Illinois did. I believe should say Delegate Walker and Delegate Key Allen She Aje so at Kahako. So idiot Edo. Thank you, Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you. Arashana, Delegate Freeland. Not online. Arash A. Wilson C. Stewart A. and Shadow, Twitsohni A. and Shadow, Nanish Editachini, Bashin, Tachini Edisha, between the Chanella, Arobat Hadashagi, Banash, Shigi A. Tel Tobek, Elchi, Twins Ildoni Jide, Kayati, but Legi 45 Agency, Dangi A. Bat Hadashah, Koaro 45 Agency, the representation for the Resource Development Committee of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Kodo A. With I, the House 16 Dolit at this time. Aro Koroyi A. Staff, she, Nanam, Mr. Tahi.
Good morning, Pro Tem Chair, members of RDC, those online, those present. My name is Rodney Tahi. I am the Legislative Advisor for Resource and Development Committee. I'm Kia Ani and Senjikina, and I'm originally from Steamboat, Arizona.
Morning, everyone. Chair letter Moses yet will say that Nasha Shishlo, Hanagani Bashichi, Nashita Shichida, Toban. Welcome, everybody.
Roshi Aya Nana Aya Nihi Counselor, Legislative Council, Shamamas Khan.
I'm on the call, brother.
Okay, we're on introductions, Shania. Honorable Freeland, Nishin Sadole, then we'll go back to Ms. Khan.
Okay, thank you. Have you seen it? Pro Tem Chair and colleagues of our Resource Development Committee, staff, and all those presenting this morning, Department of Ag and Resource Enforcement. Good morning, Division Natural Resource Team. Shea Mark Freeland, Shiro, Dosanigi Tutoni, Soroki, Ani, Asia, Sanju Canada, Che, Tuna Bethany, Edis, and Late, East Osaka, East Nasha. I have 8 chapters out of Eastern Navajo Agency. East Ozido, Najiski, I, Ozindo, Teskaido, Bikahel Gaido, Hanklegi, Nala, Nayazada. 8 chapters of Gihaloya. Good morning to one and all. I'm also the Eastern Agency representative on RDC. Thank you.
All right, now to Ms. Khan. Is she online, Mr. Tai? I don't see her. None. Okay. Shache. Mr. Filford. President's office down.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Resource and Development Committee, staff, and everybody listening in. Davis Filford from Office of the President, Vice President, Executive Staff Assistant. Because the chain in Schneidot last year, but it's changed, and that's a chain, total chain, that's another. I'll be listening in.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Chambers.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, Brian Curley Chambers in the shit. I'm from Ganado. I work with Navajo Nation Department of Justice, the Natural Resources Unit.
Okay, then we'll go with those in person. Here with us at the Twin Arrows staff.
With the Ranger Department.
Good morning. This is Hope Wilson from the Department of Resource Enforcement. Ashi Hinchley on Sentinel Bashishin, Cluster HHA, Tachini, the Chanel Shay, Twins Illidet Nasha.
Good morning, all. My name is Elmer Phillips. I'm from the Kieta area. Ilkan shon hach not at net hachini vashin kiani dash chedo. Akhinet dash chekiani dash not mention. Other I welcome you all and good morning.
Yeah, Shay Randall Jim, I'm a ranger sergeant assigned to the Department of Agriculture. I oversee the brand inspection program. My discussion song here only was seen on a say, don't want that what it's in it doesn't know or ye days in a steamboat. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Irvin Scott. I'm employed with the Navajo Nation Rangers Department, and I'm stationed out in Sanders, Arizona. Thank you.
Angashi, thank you. Staff for being here in person with us today. Anybody else online that wishes to introduce themselves?
Good morning.
Okay, we'll go with Ms. Pino.
Buenos dias. Yate Benedanotsko. Shite Darling Pino in Shiedo na Ashi Ashin Slon Chiche Bashis Chin King Ani the Chiche the Chin in the Chanel Ato Eastern Ashade Alamo, New Mexico. Akunde Nazis Ade Ade Unstrato Nazis on Navajo Mountain Chapter Vice President Ebuto. Should all add. Thank you.
Angashi, yeah.
Good morning, Veronica Blackhat with Navajo Nation Department of Justice. I'll also be listening in. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Blackhat, for being online with us this morning. Anybody else?
Good morning. This is Sergeant Billy with the Navajo Nation Rangers. I'm listening in out of Window Rock.
All righty, Sergeant. Thank you. Anybody else? Going once? Twice. Thank you for joining us this morning, everybody online, those again here in person. We got done with our welcome, our roll call vacation introductions. We'll go down to our purpose of our work session. And our purpose of our work session today is the Resource Development Committee will be conducting an in-person work session with the Division of Natural Resources and Division of Natural Resources, Department of Resource Enforcement, Department of Agriculture, and Department of Justice Natural Resource Unit to discuss on the hauling permit requirements and what Navajo Nation Code amendments would be recommended. That is our purpose of our work session. And then number 3 would be our presentation discussion. For our first one would be the presentation on hauling permit requirements as it relates to Navajo Nation Fair and Livestock Checkpoint. Our presenter is Ms. Hope Wilson, Department Manager for the Department of Resource Enforcement, and Mr. Watchman, Department Manager of the Department of Agriculture. And B will be the discussion on what Navajo Nation Code amendments or recommendations as in uniform with the hauling permit requirements. Presenter Mr. Brian Curley Chambers, Attorney, Natural Resource Unit, Department of Justice, and the Hope Wilson, Department Manager of Natural Resource Enforcement, and Leo Watchman, Department Manager, Department of Agriculture. And the 4 will be our questions, recommendation, follow-ups, and then our conclusion of our meeting today here at Twin Arrows. So that is our agenda for today. So we will go into number 3, the presentation for the hauling permit requirements as it relates to Navajo Nation fair and livestock checkpoints. Ms. Wilson.
Attending and everybody on the call as well. Just let me know I've uploaded the presentation and hopefully everybody can see it. I shared the screen. We've been asked here by the Resources and Development Committee to provide a presentation regarding the annual hauling requirements. And so the annual hauling permits are required pursuant to Title III, Section 1258, transportation of livestock, equine, animal, poultry, and or ratted by person without certificate of inspection or health certification or validated auction invoice classification. Under Section A, it says, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, it's unlawful for any person, firm, or corporation to carry, transport, or convey livestock, equine, and ratted by any conveyance without first having such livestock, equine, and ratted respected and having in immediate possession the duplicate record of the inspection and auction invoice issued pursuant to Section 1261 or a registration or identification card issued pursuant to Section 1264 or Section 1265. And any person who commits such an unlawful act is guilty of an offense. And also continues under Section B. It's unlawful for any person to transport livestock, equine, and ratted without his, her issued certificate of inspection, and any person who commits any such unlawful act is guilty of an offense. And also under Section 3, it continues, it is unlawful for any person to transport livestock, equine, or ratted without the required health document certificates as required by law, and any person who commits any such unlawful act is guilty of an offense. And also under Section 1251 of Title III, livestock officer and deputy livestock inspectors, appointment powers and duties. Under Section C, it states no certificate of inspection will be given without original documents. Hold on a minute, we're having some technical difficulties. Hello, can you? Okay. Under Section 1251, livestock officer and deputy livestock inspectors, appointment powers and duties. It says no certificate of inspection will be given without original documents. No Xerox copies will be accepted as proof of ownership without certified stamp from notary public courts or Bureau of Indian Affairs. And under written authorization, we provide this as to our deputy livestock inspectors as part of their training. If livestock are being transported by someone other than the actual brand owner, they are required to be authorized by the livestock owner in writing pursuant to sections Title III, Section 1254, inspection as to ownership of livestock. And under Section A, it states livestock owners and deputy livestock inspectors in making inspection shall require from livestock auctions or the owner or person in charge of the livestock a list of the brands and marks or necessary evidence of ownership, and shall determine by inspection of the livestock that the person in charge is the owner or an approved livestock auction or is authorized in writing to handle the livestock. If a person claims to own offspring of an equine that the person leased, the livestock officer or inspector shall require that the owner of the equine obtain an ownership and hauling certificate for the offspring and transfer ownership of the offspring to the leasee. Under Section B, feedlots, dairies, and procedures utilizing self-inspection approved by the Department Division shall comply with this section and procedures. And under Section 1255, it talks about seizure of livestock to be shipped by unauthorized person. If livestock to be shipped by rail or other conveyance or transport is upon inspection found not to belong to the shipper, or if the handler is not authorized in writing to sell, ship, transport, or drive the livestock, it shall be taken by the livestock officer and a deputy livestock inspector. And this applies to individuals who participate in the rodeo events, and they are borrowing a horse from a different individual. So when they provide their documentation to us, the individual owner that's listed on the health certificate or the hauling certificate does not match the individual who is coming through the checkpoint. So when an individual comes through the checkpoint, if they're hauling livestock for another individual, if they're using it to compete, or if they're bringing it to the event for the other participant to show up later, then they have to have documentation on hand to show that they are authorized to transport that livestock in question. And under 1264, ownership and hauling certificates for equine inspection, exemption, cancellation, civil penalty fees. Under Section A, except as otherwise provided in this act, owners or persons in charge of equine shall obtain ownership and hauling certificates before weaning or equine that are born on the Navajo Nation or within 30 days of the entrance state of all equine into the Navajo Nation. A person who fails to obtain a certificate within the prescribed time is subject to a civil penalty of $2.50 per day in excess of 30 days that the equine is in the Navajo Nation without a certificate, but not exceeding a total of $150. And going on to Section 1358, possession of livestock or equine without bill of sale. The possession of livestock or equine without a written and bill of sale can be used as prima facie evidence for a charge of unlawful possession, handling, driving, or killing of livestock or equine. And moving on to Title III, Subchapter 9, Health Requirement Offenses, Control of Contagious Diseases. Under Section 1503, Control of Animal Diseases, Violation, Classification, and Penalties. Under Section A, livestock and equine owners are responsible for the annual vaccinations and deworming of livestock and equine for the prevention of disease and the reduction of parasites. And under Section 1515, AGID test required, which refers to the agar gel immunodiffusion test. The Navajo Nation prohibits the driving or transporting into the Navajo Nation of any equine or other equine that have not tested negative to the AGID or Coggins test or United States Department of Agriculture approved equivalent tests for equine infectious anemia within 12 months prior to the date of entry. The evidence of which test results shall be shown on a health certificate, accepting from regulation only those foals accompanied in shipment by a negative tested name. These horses or other equine consigned directly to slaughter. And then going on to the current animal health requirements. On this document, which just shows the Navajo Nation animal health requirements for Navajo Nation 2022, this is the latest document that was provided to me from the Department of Agriculture. These animal health requirements are developed by the Tribal Veterinary Clinic, which is under the Department of Agriculture. So these requirements here have to be met before a livestock hauling permit is issued to an individual. And where to obtain an annual hauling permit. Individuals can contact the Department of Agriculture. They can speak with Sergeant Randall Jim. But currently there are 32 deputy livestock inspectors on the Navajo Nation, and 16 of those can issue a hauling permit. And Department of Agriculture staff also have 6 individuals on staff who can issue hauling permits for individuals. And hauling permits there are valid from January 1st to December 31st of every year. So, we're coming to the end of the calendar year. Come January 1st, individuals can begin contacting Department of Agriculture to obtain a hauling permit. And Sergeant Jim has provided this information to us of the names of individuals who can do that, and also their contact information. And there's at least 1 to 2 individuals in each agency who can provide that service along with the Department of Agriculture. It just, they can even call our central dispatch and say that they do need a hauling permit, and then they can be provided this information as well for their records. And when we did the livestock checkpoints, we also provided this information to the public so that they were aware of how to obtain a hauling permit as well. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson, for your presentation on the hauling permits. Committee members, do you have any comments or questions from the committee? Okay, I have a couple of questions and comments. Ms. Wilson, on your presentation, under the, and I know this has come up before, and this is what I wanted to address, was with the, under the 1254, the livestock, or that part that was written under 1254. I just need clarity on that part. That A that you read, is it A or where was it? Okay, yeah, under A, that first bullet point A, at the top, the first couple of sentences, it says livestock. Out towards the bottom, it says equine. So that's where it kind of threw me, was because at the beginning we're talking about livestock in general. So when you say livestock, to me, it means, you know, everything under the umbrella that we as Navajos own: pigs, chickens, whatever. But then the last two sentences goes to equine. So that's why I'm asking, you know, shouldn't that have been separated from the top part? Because in the first part, the first part states that in making the inspections, the requirements for livestock auction or owners, the person in charge of the livestock, a list of the brands and marks determined. And then all of a sudden it says, if a person claims to own the offspring of an equine, but our other livestock have offsprings as well. Our cattle, our sheep, our goats, our pigs. So has that ever been brought up to say that? Because we all know that those as well are taken to market to sell for income for families and whatnot. So that was my question on that one, because in our last presentation, in my recommendation and my question at the time to you was, what is written and why is it that at the time of the 3 fairs, there was some leniency, remember, at the time? And then your response to me at the time was, well, you know, we can go with what's written. So my question is, if this is written and I'm hauling cattle with an offspring, and then I see this, and yet you're the rangers or whoever inspectors question me on that, and I can go back and say, well, it just relates to equine. It doesn't relate to my cattle in that way. So that would be my question, Ms. Wilson, is that's why I was saying from the department here, these are clarities I wanted, because I was getting the concerns and complaints from livestock owners, rodeo contestants that were saying, why? And I've stated that several times. In my 50 years, I've only gone through inspections the past 5 years during the fair and during the 4th of July. Prior to that, nothing. So that's why I'm asking these questions on behalf of those individuals, is why is it now? Why? And during this last time when this came out, and then you went further to show the current animal health requirements, you know, that sheet was presented, and then you gave us a list as well as how many can inspect and where can these inspectors go. And then I went back to say, you know, I went through that as well, trying to find an inspector. I contacted Mr. Watchman. He said, okay, come on down. At this time, we will have so-and-so do your hauling permit for you. I did. I went down there. But again, there is not enough training, I guess, I don't know, or clarity to the person that was doing it, because they were like, well, I don't know what this means. And if I had them complete that for me and I went to somebody who's knowledgeable and what should have been written, and they tell me, well, this is wrong, but yet it's what the person wrote. That was one thing that I was scared about at that time, because, you know, it wasn't clear, but yet my health certificates and everything, my chips, you know, they were saying, yes, these are Mr. Stewart's horses, but the hauling permit might have said something different, might have missed a mark, might have missed a brand, might have missed a tag. You know, that's where I'm coming at, you know, if we're going to go that route, then that's what I want to clarify, you know, is how are we going to do it? And then, you know, the other part that you mentioned, you know, was the under 1255, the documentation for transport. You know, so if I was to give my horse to Mr. Mose and say, Mr. Mose, I'm going to RDC, I need you to haul my horse for me at this time. And Mr. Mose takes my horse, and yet I don't have a document to saying, yes, I grant Mr. Mose permission to haul my horse. But yet there's that verbal communication from here. Then how are we going to do that? Okay, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, that are in here, and I don't know if those things came across when these laws and these amendments were done at the time. But, you know, in this day and age where it's so fast paced, you know, everything is online. I mean, I have my health certificate on my phone. All my equine stuff, yes, is hard copy, but whatever I can transpose to my phone for them to have me carry less papers, then I would rather do that. So that's what I'm getting at. And that is my point to you and the staff, Ms. Hope Wilson, is how can we as RDC, granted, you know, this is our last month, you know, but in the next term that comes in, I would like to see some changes in those areas to say, these are areas that we want to address, that we want to make sure that are going to, that way it makes it more accessible and more flexible as to what you were using the last time we discussed this, you know, the flexibility and working with the contestants, livestock owners, and the rangers as well. What can we do rather than saying, you know, well, that's my buddy, so I'm going to go ahead. If I was an inspector, you know, he's my buddy, so I'm going to go ahead and let him go in. But the next guy, you know, I really don't care for him, so I'm going to grill him and go with the book. That's what I don't want to see. That's what I'm saying. You know, we all know that's out there. I mean, and that's what I want to see, you know, is that it's going to be covered in there. That's what I'm getting to, Ms. Wilson and staff, is what can we do? What can be done to help those, to make it, again, a playing level field across the board for all of our livestock haulers, wherever they may be. Okay. Again, those are comments and questions. Ms. Wilson.
Your first question regarding leniency, back in 2019 and then this year again, when we did the checkpoints, it does state in the law that we do have to have the original signed, notarized documentation on hand when they come through the checkpoints. But we worked with those individuals, and it is based upon officer discretion in terms of they're the ones there handling that individual that's coming through the checkpoint. They're the ones that have the documentation in hand, or, you know, whatever the livestock owner is informing them of. Just it's at their discretion what they are going to do. So there were certain situations where individuals didn't have, let's say they didn't have their Coggins test, but they had their health certificate and then they had their hauling permit. So it's up to the officer at that point, because usually in most cases, the Coggins testing, their accession number along with the lab number is located on the health certificate as well. So if they want to accept that, you know, then they're more than welcome to accept that. it's just like, when you're speeding and you're going down the road and an officer pulls you over, and I've been in this situation where I didn't have my driver's license. So I explained to him that I just barely went to the bank just before this, and I must have left it at the bank because I used it there to get money out. So he asked me if I had my driver's license number. So I was able to provide that to him along with my registration and insurance. And then he didn't give me a warning or anything. He just told me, make sure next time you have your driver's license on you. And there were situations we came across with that. Some individuals did not have their documentation on them, but we were willing to work with them. In one situation, Dr. Upshaw was able to, I was able to get a hold of her. It was before 8 a.m. We got a hold of her and she says, I know I did that. I know I did that house certificate. I know I emailed it out. So I said, okay. So I went back to the participant and I said, she said to check your spam folder and it's coming from this email address. So she rechecked all her documents and stuff and she was able to find it. So in that case, we accepted what documentation Dr. Upshaw had provided to her. So that's the discretion that officers have to use while they're in the field. And when we talk about everything being uniform, if we want everything to be uniform, everything to be on the same playing field, then we go back to what is written in the code and we stick with what's there. So in the situation where the individual came and she didn't have her original signed documents in hand, then we would have had to not denied her in that case instead of being able to accept the electronic format in that situation. And the next question is regarding the livestock inspectors. Sergeant Jim from Department of Agriculture conducts the training for the deputy livestock inspectors. They go through a 24 to 40-hour training, and they go over all the laws. They go over all the seizure policies and stuff, and they have a standard operating procedures on how they conduct that. And then at that point, and that individual, whoever took the class, goes out into the field and does professional development training with a ranger or another livestock inspector. And they do that for 80 hours again. They go actually hands-on, they do the inspections, they do the descriptions, they check the brands, any microchipping or anything. And at that point, the individual who is out there with them, guiding them through this process, answering questions, they sign off on a document to Sergeant Jim, letting him know that they are fine with it. They're comfortable with doing the descriptions, with verifying brands and stuff. And if they're not at that point, after the 80 hours, comfortable in their skills and abilities to do that, then they have to let the individual who's training them know that I still need more time. I'm not okay to be let out on my own yet. So that's up to them to, so in the case where that individual said that they weren't sure what was going on, then they should have went back to Sergeant Jim or to the senior livestock inspector and said, I'm not okay to be let out on my own. I don't want to complete the forms just yet. Let me go through this one fair season again with help. And then then after that, I can become more proficient in my knowledge. That's something that they should bring to the attention of Sergeant Jim and another livestock inspector to know that. And with the animal health requirements, those are developed by the tribal veterinarian, and those are ever changing. It's just based upon, any disease outbreaks that occur in our vicinity near us and neighboring counties and stuff. And what usually occurs is Dr. Upshaw is in a network. So when the states notify her of an outbreak in the neighboring county, then at that point, she lets us know, hey, this is going on in Sandoval County in New Mexico. They've had 3 positive cases for equine anemia. So, we need to be on the lookout for this. And then it's at her discretion whether or not she chooses to put a further restriction on those animal health requirements. So right now it's 30 days. So if anything were to, an outbreak were to occur, she could say, I want a health certificate required within 15 days of the event. But she lets us know of any changes that occur at that level. And what we do on our side is that I send it out to the sergeants and also to Sergeant Jim at Department of Ag. And I also let the grazing officials know that this is out there, this is going on. So just keep an eye out if you guys come across any animals in question who are showing any types of symptoms, then, at that point, you need to let the veterinarian know that we need to look into those cases. And as far as the way the language is written under section 1254, what's currently in the code was approved in 2006. So that predates a lot of us, in this room in terms of what was already approved back then. And as time goes along, we do need to look at it and see, are they still current? Do we need to change? It's, there's even changes in language between, may and shall, even that those two simple words can make a major change in a law in terms of this requirement may apply to an individual, or it shall apply to an individual, those kind of things. So under section A, that's the way the statute was written at the time. We can go over and have those discussions, but any amendments that are going to be made shouldn't only come from resource enforcement. Those amendments would need to include input from the deputy livestock inspectors, along with the grazing officials, and along with Department of Agriculture, the veterinary clinic, BIA as well. So it's not a task that only resource enforcement would be involved when. It would also be DOJ as well, in terms of, is this exactly how we want Title III to be written, or is this section of Title III obsolete at this point and we can take it out, or do we need to amend the language to be current with what's going on out there now? As far as the electronic documents versus the in-hand documents, we view that as, according to what's in our standard operating procedures, what's applied in the training, and what's in the code, is that we have to have the documents in hand to verify. When individuals come through the checkpoint, sometimes they'll give us a Coggins test that is from maybe 3 years ago, and we tell them that this test, it did show negative, but it's from 3 years ago. So we need the current one, here with us. So, and with the ability this day and age to modify documents online, to edit different things, I would encourage us to continue to accept only the original documentation from participants. Just for our, like I said, it's there, and I think it protects everybody, because, let's say my horse was taken, without authorization. And, it's easy for someone to write a letter and sign it and say, oh, this is Miss Wilson's signature on here, but if it's a notarized bill of sale document, there's no question, because individuals have to go in, show their identification to verify that they are indeed the individuals who are signing those documents. So I think that should still be a requirement, that we should have that all in hand. And I think that, moving forward, that it just takes communication, us working with individuals, us providing notification to the public that, it's this is just the requirement that we have, that's there. And it's a safeguard as well to individuals who are participating, and those of us that have to verify those documents. That's all I have. I don't know if you have other questions.
Either ABGS theater also I like to walk around and fog as well. I do a lot of classroom training for our brand inspectors. And I also do a lot of presentations at chapters and stuff like that. So I do cover these laws with the brand inspector candidates. It is pretty strict. I have to maintain a certain amount of hours. I wish I could shorten it some more, but in order to cover the standard operating procedures and the tribal laws, I need at least 3 days. So to chop it even more is not going to work out because I have to cover myself as well. Just to let you know, it's not everybody is going to be commissioned that takes my class. As she taught me, we took I did a class up in Mexican Water, Red Mesa. The Kuishi take it maybe 6 trainees. One of them very good. The others needed some more work. There are some people in there that I am still struggling to train, doing their OJT inspection forms, but they utilize that description. I think it's done. So it's just because you took my class does not necessarily mean you're going to get a commission court to do brand inspections. The livestock or equine the bakagi. When it says livestock, even when I got transferred to Department of Agriculture to do these things, the livestock or equine, or isn't equine part of livestock? The argument there was livestock. We need to keep that consumable animals. The better that some that people can eat versus horses. Yeah, I know some people do eat horses, but it's primarily not acceptable throughout society. So, equine or livestock at back in 2006. That was their explanation to me. Livestock, it's things that you can consume versus equine, primarily for rodeos and ranch work and stuff like that. So that was the explanation that they gave me. Yeah, if you have questions directed strictly towards me, but right now, I just want to clarify that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that helps me in understanding and how to reiterate as well back to the contestants and whatnot. But I do agree with you, Ms. Wilson, that a lot of communication needs to happen back, especially at the chapter level. Because I attend District 18 grazing meetings and permittee meetings, and none of these within the past 4 years ever came up from the grazing official. A tally count, especially when we did the AIF funding. That's what I pushed for, was tally counts from my 4 chapters. According to that, and then the people, everybody want a tally count, current tally count, crop count, and those are always, they're never there. That's what I've learned within the past 4 years. Communication needs to happen. Auto inspectors are slow, brand inspectors are slow. Mr. Jim, Sergeant Jim, they won't learn. To me, the way I see it is, such a what brands mean, what brand symbols are, and whatnot. Without egging the 30-day brands, burning and whatnot, those you have to be around the livestock to understand that and to see what those brands mean. So I agree with you, and as far as education, like I said, it goes back again, to what can we do, and then also with the original documents as well being needed on hand, and I've heard before, not only from you, Ms. Wilson, but also from the parents as well of 4-H and junior rodeo, that they have binders. But as you get older, it's like I said, for me, I'd rather have this and have all my documents in here. But then again, that's me, and I know that, I would probably now need to carry my folder around, which is now turning into a 3-inch binder for all my animals. but that's going to be something, down the road too, to make sure, that everything is there, because, I want to make sure that everything that I have is going to be current as well. So again, thank you for that. And I was checking my text messages from the other colleagues online. There was no other questions, no other comments. Shana, Mr. Daniels, and Shah Denish.
Thank you. Without pro temp chair, without I don't know without should say catching is delegate Walker Donana delegate KLBK out of my brother and delegate Freeland without Ado without pro temp chair without be issue with other chair in the age of 25th Council as orientation by Altego. According Navajo Hopi Land Commission, local to them. As you saw in Sabana, Shaudi that Quidona Gate in the kitchen house. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Wilson Quidodam. Thank you for your presentation. Nagai Kwegi livestock inspection. Adonana Kudo Mr. Jim Kudo. I know that we have some deputy livestock inspectors out there. AD Gioia Baba Desihudo. Every year we approve Navajo Nation Council budget, approve an comprehensive budget. This year, FY 2023 budget to give a Nancy Linko. We ado Batsate Kez deputy livestock inspectors. AD Yahago. Which is a lagi. I know that every Wednesday that Cortez, they have their livestock auction in Cortez. So Wednesday morning that came right there at the intersection or at the flea market. They do inspections. So ADK Kodona Gaita Halita Iba Edo Lanso. Oh, you have such what that's not about Dido Iba Bahatis City Digi. The Gaidam stipends that Hegid Adonana Kodona Gaidam mileage Babaja, and I see. Bonet Zadon, so Baban's case, so Kodona Gaid livestock inspectors, deputy livestock inspectors, Ajata in Nishiki. Ajik and Haloi added the car lequado. So Ideo Yabashan net lequado. Ado Nanat and a great rangers. Oh, they're very stretched thin throughout the Navajo Nation. The great Western Joe, what Yego. Oh, yeah, Yego, Kodon Nanas so. Yenet Ashoko. I call Western agencies and then Schago Hilhozo. I call the great inspection at Nico. I see them. I see it's a best total. I call the Ibashan at Locodo. I call the great rangers again in Western agency. Other agencies, you know that Ecuador. So the great as you know, Western, it starts from here. All the way down to Mexican Hat, Utah. One Zago a one. As we go along, but right now I don't have any questions on this one. I know that every summer we do council. They do council rides, and they these trail rides and they like Navajo Nation Council trail rides into Window Rock. These are a lot of them. She thought Coggins test that the had no that the car Chinaja that yeah, they in this case these are rangers gate. Oh, that's a what is that the be il need as in son of a bands case ho Arunana Kodona Gaidam do also never base so hello that's a lot of our Navajo people are unemployed. Gaidam but beneath the Halona gate of ice the base of the Halona to get their livestock and Coggins test that they don't know other than Gaidam health with a dead tigi. You can't do it, let it go eat up to Halona that ho. These are trail rides throughout the Navajo Nation, not just the council ride, but other trail rides. And in summertime, as that your trail ride, they eat that eggy shy. And so yeah, but bonds that's case do the rangers resource enforcement do they stop every vehicle that is transporting livestock horses that so 80 behind the kiddo that is local 80 I'm sort of a hasido the program chair. Thank you very much.
Question, Shalana, thank you. Ms. Wilson and staff response.
Look at Daniels for the questions. As far as the DLIs, I have the same concern you do as well, that their positions are not, it's not like a full-time position that they hold. And when they do complete these inspections, you know, all they get at the end of that is the $150 once they complete a book of inspections. And that's all the reimbursement the nations gives back to them for their time, their mileage, their meals, those kind of things. So it's at the discretion of Mr. Watchman if he's going to pay them a mileage stipend or a meal stipend for if they're out there every Wednesday. And I think that is something that should be considered, because gas is costs a lot now, you know, and they're using their own vehicle to get to the inspection site to conduct this service on behalf of the Navajo Nation. And DOJ has determined that these DLIs are employees of the Navajo Nation, is the way they have classified them. So they actually have PAFs that are processed, but they don't have any of the benefits of being a Navajo Nation employee, like, you know, travel authorizations. They're not covered by insurance or these different things. So if DOJ has classified them as employees of the nation and they have a PAF, then maybe that's something we need to look into in terms of giving them, actually paying them, or at least giving them a stipend for their meals, their mileage to conduct these inspections that they do on behalf of the Navajo Nation. And then I think the next question was the trail rides. Yes, those trail rides should be checkpoints as well. Individuals who participate in those, if they're transporting their livestock, their equine and stuff, then they're all subject to the laws that are there. We are working currently with Department of Agriculture in terms of increasing our livestock checkpoints for this upcoming year. And that's something Sergeant Jim will be letting the public know kind of when and where those activities will be happening, so that individuals are prepared. And we can stop individuals who are transporting livestock in a trailer. We're allowed to do that, and we're allowed to check for inspection papers and stuff. And also livestock inspectors can do that as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson. Shana, thank you for your questions and comments. Anything else, Ashkura?
Thank you. Without that,
Shana, Mark, hold on. We're getting feedback from Mr. Honorable Daniels.
10-4.
Thank you, Kudo. Ms. Wilson, Kudo. Thank you for your response, Kudo. In regards to deputy livestock inspectors, Kudo Nagaidam, Kudo moving forward, Kudo working together, Kudo Nagaidam. With stipends, mileage, I know that this 24th council with the RDC will only have a little bit over a month left, and only 2 of us are returning. But I don't know which committee they're gonna assign us to. Okay, Hesi does it assign in the law and order does. That's where you start, when you become a delegate. You start from a Hesi, law and order. You work your way up. So, but this is going to be my 4th term, though. But moving forward, let's look into that. For deputy livestock inspectors, their mileage, their meals that I know it takes a lot to drive around to go to an inspection site. It's a struggle. The quick hours she adds more than 4 hours, 5 hours doing inspection. And some they go there the day before people Cortez, not just Cortez, but other areas as well, other auction areas. So for deputy livestock inspectors. Adonana Koda Rangers, like I said, we only have two Rangers in the Western Agency. So it's huge, Western Agency. Moving forward, the next council, the next RDC, but out there, if they assign me the HES committee, assign the shield, so just those 2 areas. They are so Mr. Pro Temp Chair, brother. Thank you.
I'm Christian Kashnat. Honorable Freeland.
Good morning, Pro Temp Chair, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Diga. Staff and Ms. Wilson and Mr. Jim, thank you for the presentation as well. Just a couple of comments. The first one relates to the code, and maybe a recommendation is to look at the code entirely, and maybe look for amendments that need to occur on updating that part of the code. Just a recommendation, and how it would be helpful to resource enforcement, but also to the producers as well. How will it also work? How will it work for both parties? My second question relates to Eastern Agency, or my second comment relates to Eastern Agency. With the checkerboard out there, we were working with the land boards to try to get the tri-party agreement in place, but that really has a lot to do with BLM and BIA. Jurisdiction-wise, how will you deal with cross jurisdictions out in Eastern? And I'm hoping that this tri-party agreement, if we ever get it completed, will be helpful to you all too in that way. So just some comments from our side and Eastern Navajo. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wilson, response.
I think I missed Delegate Daniel's question earlier about the Rangers out in Western. Last year, the Department of Resource Enforcement received additional funding from the President's office for 7 new Ranger positions. And we turned in the position classification questionnaires in July of 2021. And DPM still has not classified those positions. We've asked them, we follow up with them. It's been in my quarterly reports every quarter since then. And Mrs. Becker, since she came on, she's been trying to work with Ms. Toddy at the Department of Personnel Management to see if we can get those positions classified, because we have individuals who are interested in working for the department. However, since we can't, those positions aren't classified, we can't advertise, we can't recruit, we can't do anything until those positions are classified. And we also submitted in March of 2021 the salary scale for the Rangers is very low compared to other law enforcement agencies. So we submitted all the documentation to personnel management as well in March of 2021. And with Delegate Key Allen, he had written a memorandum to personnel management asking them what the status of that was. And there was a response from Ms. Toddy, and she stated that she would have a decision within 30 days. And we still have not received a decision on those documents either. It's still pending. We've gone back and forth with them. They reviewed what we submitted, and then they told us this is way too much. What you're telling us you guys do is way too much. So bring it down a little bit. So we took some things, we abbreviated some items, but I told them realistically, that is what the Rangers do. That's what they're responsible for. I said, it's not just livestock, it's archaeological, it's parks and recreation staff, it's, historic preservation. It's a whole multitude of everything under natural resources, minerals department, gravel permits, and all of these kind of things. So we submitted it to them, and then we've gone back and forth. We have finalized, we've submitted all our comments related to the Ranger position, the Ranger Sergeant position, the Ranger Lieutenant position. However, they stated we never submitted the classification for the Ranger Recruit position. However, I reiterated that we did submit it on such and such date. So she hasn't gotten back with us on that one again. So we haven't finalized that classification. So we're still in limbo in terms of the pay scale as well for Rangers. So we do have out for Western, we have 2 proposed new positions. One of them is going to be in Kaibito, one in Monument Valley, Copper Mine, and then we have a Ranger Recruit currently funded that we were looking to advertise for Pinion. We do have an applicant, and they're going through the background process for the positions. And as far as Delegate Freeland's questions regarding revision to the code, I agree that we do need to have representatives from the producer side, like I said, along with us, and also the livestock inspectors and the grazing officials, Department of Ag, and the vet clinic as well. Because once you start changing one thing, it affects everybody else in the cycle. So I think if we all come together, we probably have to establish a working group in terms of making those revisions. And, also as well, representative from RDC, that way you guys are informed as to exactly what we're proposing. As far as jurisdiction in the Eastern Agency Checkerboard area, we are very limited in terms of our authority. It's only based upon tribal lands. Our Eastern Area Rangers, along with some of the Rangers in our Central District, are looking at going to the New Mexico Police Academy as part of a waiver program. Instead of having to go through the full 16-week academy, they would do a 2-week waiver program once their applications are submitted, reviewed, and approved by the academy. They take the 2-week course. They got to take the test at the end of that. And then once that does happen and everything is completed, then they become cross-commissioned with the state of New Mexico. And that would allow us to address all of those issues and concerns that are involved, the checkerboard area, state lands, BLM lands, tribal lands, and all those kind of things. Thank you.
Gushi, thank you, Ms. Wilson, for your response. Shana, Mark, anything else? Or anybody else online want input? Committee members? Dano yeah, we'll go ahead and move on down. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, for your presentation, responses to the questions and comments also regarding our presentation discussion on A. Or Shana, Honorable Daniels.
Thank you. Kudo Pro Temp Chair, kudo Saliaja, Adonana kudo Ms. Wilson, kudo kudo Adonana kudo Nagaidam. I kind of went off the topic here, kudo Nagaidam. But that it didn't kudo Nagai with the Nagai kudo maybe the Itish Kishiki kudo Nagaidam. Perhaps what we can do is that we can have a meeting with Ms. Toddy with Aiden to get an update from her. What are the bonnet not all some babans as case kadi with all shiki. I don't know DPM Ms. Toddy are the Kodonagada resource enforcement and RDC. What are the big so and that's the given additional what they did pro temp chair idea. Thank you.
Question Shania, Honorable Daniels, we can go ahead and schedule that with Mr. Tahi's assistance and also Ms. Wilson's assistance to have a follow-up meeting with Ms. Toddy regarding the recommendations that were submitted and no response back or delay in response rather for that portion. The other area too, as you were speaking, Shana, and also Ms. Wilson, I know that at one time we did meet with you here at Twin Arrows, and I wanted to ask, I think I did ask at that time, but I don't recall the response. The fees, as far as like what you stated under 1255 of the, not 1255, there was the other portion for the equine and the animals born on Navajo with the fees of 150 or 250 per day. That portion, aka this one here, 1264. These fees, do they just go back into the general pot fund, or is there a fund that you already have within the Navajo Nation that says that any fines or fees that you collect from here, it goes back to the enforcement department itself? That would be my question back to you and staff. Ms. Wilson?
The fees that are collected from the livestock inspectors, or if we seize livestock, any fees that are collected for us housing, feeding, caring for the livestock in seizure, and once they're taken to auction, any proceeds that are taken from there go back into the livestock custody fund. Is where that goes. And just like with Delegate Daniel's concern about the DLIs and their lack of payment for them for their stipends and their travel and meals, that can come out of the livestock custody fund, because that's where the money is deposited into, and that fund is currently overseen by the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson. Anything else, honorable colleagues of Resource Development Committee? If not, then we'll the item from discussion on what Navajo code amendments is recommended to uniform hauling permit requirements. Presenter, Mr. Brian Curley Chambers, attorney with Natural Resource Unit. Mr. Chambers.
Good morning again, everyone. So I think we've kind of already gone through what portions of the code that are applicable to the situations that law enforcement have encountered and the issues that were raised by Delegate Stewart in the last meeting. So I won't go through them again. And I think this presentation that Department of Resource Enforcement has is very thorough. It cites to a lot of the provisions in the code that would foreseeably be the sections that would be proposed amended. So I would reference those, but just to kind of go over the code that we're talking about, the section of the code we're talking about in general, it is the 2006 Livestock and Foreign Animal Disease Response Act. And around this time, if you read the beginning of that resolution, it's going to be CMY-27-06. If you read the beginning, the introduction of the legislation, it reads, the main purpose of this was to control the movement of animals and prevent diseases. And I think at the time, mad cow disease was a big concern. And so that's why you'll see a lot of these provisions are meant to prevent, the spread of disease across the Navajo Nation livestock and horses or equine. So, going forward, the only thing I would caution is just making them too lenient. They don't achieve that purpose anymore. But that's the main reason why they're so stringent, is because one, we kind of have to control the movement of the animals. If there is an outbreak, you don't want anything to happen to people's livestock. So that's the biggest concern and why the legislation was drafted in the first place. But with that said, it is a bit of a hard to understand code. It kind of maybe could use an update. I mean, there's been a push in Arizona side to reclassify equine as just regular livestock. So I don't know if the Navajo Nation would want to follow in suit, but people did that so that they could use horses as companionship animals. Like when you have anxiety, they're medically classified as companion animals. So there is a change in the law. The law is always changing, of course. So there's some updates that could be made insofar as that. But again, whether there's a real practical reason why law enforcement would want to classify horses separately, that would need to be discussed. And if you just go through the code, it's pretty clear. There's 3 major requirements. You want your brand inspection and certification, your ownership certification, and your health inspection certification. So those are the main 3 things. And I think when it comes to public understanding, I think public outreach and education might be a really good first step to take. For example, when the Department of Fish and Wildlife implemented their animal or their dog and cat ordinances, their animal control ordinances, I think passed in 2018, they had a pretty robust public outreach in terms of making those readily available, easily understandable, small brochures, pamphlets, made them easily digestible for people to understand. They have it on their website. They have a billboard sort of letting people know that these are out there and they exist. So maybe the Department of Resource Enforcement and Department of Agriculture, with help from DOJ, could implement some sort of brochure or pamphlet so that this information is out there and it's not a surprise for anybody. And I mean, they've been around since 2006. So I think just better public outreach and education would be really beneficial to this discussion. I don't know if a lot of these issues would be resolved by overhaul of the code, but again, that's something we could discuss going forward. And I think that's all I have to say at this point. The Department of Resource Enforcement went over the code and all the relevant portions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chambers. And Ms. Wilson, do you have anything to add to that part of the presentation? Ms. Wilson?
As far as the public outreach, as Mr. Chambers indicated, this was approved in 2006, and I was told that at the time that this is the publication that went out back in 2006, and from my understanding is that they printed out thousands of these, and they were distributed across the nation to different chapters. It was a campaign that was done not only by Department of Agriculture and the Resource Enforcement Department, but the whole Division of Natural Resources, they went out there, they provided presentations, they did public outreach and that kind of stuff. But however, knowing that was since 2006, we have some individuals who were underage at the time, and we need to educate them as well to let them know that this does exist and it's out there. And so we're working with Department of Agriculture to produce this publication again and then send it out to everybody out of the agencies. And we are more than available to give presentations. When the fair, all the time leading up to the fair, when people were having questions, I let Department of Ag know that they can, anybody who had questions, concerns regarding health requirements, hauling permits, they can speak with any ranger, or they can speak with Sergeant Jim at the office or myself. That way we can clarify a lot of the misunderstanding that's out there, because I think a lot of that happens when one individual hears something, or this is their interpretation of what it says, then they tell their friend, and then they tell their friend, and it goes on, and they misunderstand exactly what's being required and requested. So as I was getting questions during the Navajo Nation Fair, why do you need a Coggins test? What is a Coggins test? So that's when I developed that frequently asked question sheet, and we were sending that out as well to any participants who requested that. So help them understand exactly what is a Coggins test, what is it about and why do we require it? So we're working with Department of Ag to do more public outreach, having Sergeant Jim on the radio, explaining the law and explaining what's needed, why it's needed, and those kind of things. And so we're going to do this outreach as requested to try to hopefully fill in the gaps in terms of what people understand the animal health requirements to be, and why they're there. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson. And I know that we do have Mr. Watchman as well on as a presenter for both parts, really, for A and B, but I missed him on A. I don't know if Mr. Watchman is online to add anything for part B to our presentation.
Brother, still I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Freeland, Delegate Freeland, Shania, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Good morning. It's actually 10:59, so it's still morning. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for that, and just kind of updating or thinking about your comment about the outreach. If you could maybe, as a recommendation, have it on a consistent basis, even bi-yearly possibly, or whenever you have time, have that campaign. That way our people, our producers and our ranchers are consistently reminded and updated. And I know a lot of them do good, and like the 4-Hers, they're on top of things, but others need to be reminded as well. And if there's a way to continually update them or inform them that that there's some protocols that need to occur. And I just want to recommend that you maybe have that outreach consistently as a campaign of some sort, continually going forward. That would be very great. I know we probably get the attention of a lot of our people. So just kind of a recommendation from my side, and Art. But yeah, thank you.
Augustine, Delegate Freeland, thank you. RDC members, any other comments? None, okay. For myself, I do agree with what Honorable Freeland said, and also Ms. Wilson, and also Mr. Chambers, as far as the communication and the documentation that needs to be put out there. I'm glad to hear that publication that you have now is going to be sent back out to the community members. That's something for myself, anything that I come across like that, I keep with me, and I share it with the community members as a delegate the past 4 years, like the home site leasing, also the different changes that BIA was going through. Those EA I carry with me in a different bag. So anytime that comes up with a community member, I would show it to them. This is where it states in the petition. So with that one, I would like to have a couple once you get done with it, when you go out to the chapters, like you said, the collaboration to do that, because like I stated earlier, I do attend the district grazing as well as at times the agency grazing when time permits, and also the chapter monthly grazing and farm board meetings. So that would really come in handy at that time to share with those different organizations and chapter level groups that I meet out there. So I would like to have a part of that as well, and to be a part of that to any way that we as leadership and community members can help the departments is what I'm looking at, and how to make it easier so that in the future, when other leadership comes in, you won't hear so much and have to reiterate yourself, or the staff as well. So that's why I'm thinking, this is what I would really like to see moving forward. And like I said, the communication I have out there with the contestants and whatnot, that's why I share with them as well. So again, thank you for that, and Mr. Chambers, and your input as well, as far as what changes could possibly be done at this time, but at the same time, looking at what just needs to be done as far as the outreach to the public and the education that needs to be done, for your observation on that part of it, and the assistance that you gave as well to do that, and what needs to be done as far as also making sure that again that we're not too lenient. I do take that into consideration as well, looking at it. And I was just thinking at the site of making it more beneficial to us, but I do understand now the need to have the documents in hand. So with that, I do thank you for that as well, Mr. Chambers. I don't know if there are any other comments from any other RDC members. Anything else from any other staff? None. Okay, goes into number 4, our recommendations, questions, follow-ups, which we already did through the 2 presentations. Right now, at this point in time, we also did those 2, the questions and recommendations. Follow-ups, I don't know, Resource Development Committee members, we would like to have a follow-up or move it to just another discussion at a report. I will leave that at the discretion of RDC members to decide on that part. Mr. Tahi.
Pro Tem Chair, members of RDC, it was recommended that we do a follow-up with personnel regarding the ranger positions. I will set that up. We can either have it on RDC's next regular meeting, which RDC can give a directive during that time, or we can set up a leadership meeting and have the meeting with Ms. Rosita Tati as well. I will take the direction of RDC and how you want to proceed with this. Back to you, Pro Tem Chair.
Okay, Resource Development Committee members, we do have an option for leadership or a meeting with Ms. Toddy. Regular meeting, which will be added onto our agenda.
Motion.
Motion for.
What Mr. Tahi recommended.
Okay, he will add it to RDC's agenda. Thank you, Shania. That'll be added to our next meeting for Wednesday. During our RDC meeting to have a report. And anything else on follow-ups? Oh, no.
I have another comment.
You have the floor, Honorable Freeland.
Thank you, Tele. Ms. Wilson and Mr. Jim as well again. in regards to your unmet needs, just to maybe continually to press your unmet needs every budget season. Just a recommendation. Thank you.
Augustine, thank you. Anybody else from Resource Development Committee? Yeah, again, Ms. Wilson and staff, thank you for your time and also for your presentations and sharing information with us as Resource Development Committee members and others online as well. Mr. Chambers as well, thank you for your input again. And also, what we need to do as Resource Development Committee members right now and the assistance that we can provide at this time to the Department of Resource Enforcement and also Department of Agriculture to get things moving and keep them moving in that direction and to see what needs to be done for our community members, our ranchers and livestock owners. So thank you for your time. We are now at number 5, the conclusion of our meeting and adjournment. Motion by Honorable Daniels.
Second, Freeland.
Second by Freeland. Okay, then we vote. Chairman Nez, how do you vote? Are you on? Excused. Shajayaja, Vice Chair Walker, are you online? No. Shanaki Allen? Vote on adjournment. Shana Herman Daniels? Green? Shana Mark Freeland?
Green.
Green? Shana Chairman Nez, excused. Shajat Yezra, Vice Chair Walker? Absent. Shana Key Allen? That's it. So thank you, everybody, for your time. You all have a good day.